so thank you for coming. There may be votes at some point, so the MPs will have to vanish in a puff of smoke, and Paul here, one of the Digital Democracy Commissioners, will then chair the meetings. We've also got two commissioners who are going to be arriving. Who are going to be arriving a bit later, and the speaker, I think, is coming for the second session, yes, as I understand it. We've got some very interesting witnesses today to give us evidence. David Babbs, the Executive Director of 38 Degrees, which is an organisation that heavily interacts with MPs in Parliament with a mass email database on a huge range of issues, the latest being the internet bill that is going through Parliament today. As his CV states, David's been obsessed with people power ever since the Iraq War in 2003. So I'm looking forward to hear his evidence. We've also got Bree Rogers-Lowry from Change.org, and who set up the online campaigning organisation. Has got a great CV, but the best part of it, as it says here, is born to Australian parents in London with a twanged English accent, an odd name. She considers herself a proud Australian Londoner with a penchant for maps, and both 38 Degrees and Change.org are the way I think that the public is going in terms of digital democracy. So I think Brian Loader, Director School of Social and Political Science of the University of York, is with us as well as one of giving evidence today. Douglas Carswell, who is an MP who's written a lot about internet and democracy, and Lord Knight of Weymouth. So I think we'll start in order, if we can, with 38 Degrees. So if you'd like to sort of make a presentation, and then we'll follow it up with questions.
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks for inviting 38 Degrees to participate in this. I think it's a really good sign that such a commission exists and is doing this work, and that we've been invited. You gave a very brief introduction to 38 Degrees, but just to add a little bit of colour to that before I go into our evidence. 38 Degrees was launched just over 5 years ago with three assumptions really behind the launch of 38 Degrees. The first was that talk of the apathy of the British public was something that was exaggerated, that actually if you talk to people, a lot of them care deeply about the future of the country, care deeply about things that we might call politics, but the reasons they weren't getting involved in the traditional ways were often good reasons, sometimes bad reasons, but weren't to do with not caring. Secondly, the second assumption was that democracy is better if more people get involved, and that it was a problem that people weren't getting involved. And then thirdly, that the internet could help in some way there, that there was a need for new kinds of institution, new kinds of mechanisms whereby the public voters could participate in the democratic process, and that traditional institutions left a gap that 38 Degrees sought to partially fill. Over the last 5 years, we've grown to now having over 2.5 million members, which I guess indicates that the premise that there was some kind of gap and there was an appetite has been proved right. And what those members do is we use the internet as a tool to enable us to make decisions quickly about what we wish to work on, and to coordinate our activities, to pool our resources, whether that be our influence through signing petitions or contacting decision makers, whether that's an MP or the chief executive of a company, or to pool our resources in terms of our financial resources to chip in to fund a legal challenge or something like that, or to pool our resources in terms of time, using the internet to organise face-to-face events in the real world, of which there are hundreds taking place each year for 38 Degrees now. So I think 38 Degrees members...
Because there are a lot of witnesses, we've got about 5 minutes.
Oh, don't worry. That's I thought that was useful context, because I wanted to tell you a bit about who 38 Degrees members are, because the evidence that I was going to give to you, and which I can give in more detail in written form, was of a survey of 38 Degrees members. So one of the things that I guess is different about 38 Degrees is we don't seek to speak for our members, we seek to give our members means of speaking for themselves, which is obviously a tricky thing to reconcile with this kind of traditional mechanism. But the way that through a bit of trial and error over a few events such as this that we found can work quite well is to survey our members with some of the questions that we anticipate you asking about in advance. And so we did that last week, and about 72,000 of our members have responded. We've got a lot of qualitative feedback, of which I'll try and just pick out the highlights in response to questions. But I guess the key findings are that there's a hugely mixed picture in terms of how our members experience online democracy engagement with their decision makers at the moment. More than half our members told us that they have at least some positive experiences of online engagement with a Member of Parliament at the moment. 66% said they'd had at least one good experience, and 62% said that their MP always responds respectfully to them. But that leaves a significant minority at the moment who've had somewhat negative through to really, really shocking experiences in terms of the way that their Member of Parliament's engaged with them. We've had stories of MPs being plain rude and abusive, frankly, in some cases quite sweary with our members. Some MPs that don't respond at all. Some MPs that have gone as far as to block their email address to stop people getting in touch with them. And when we've tried to look into, well, is there a pattern that emerges here? I think we can definitely say that there's no clear party correlation here. There are examples of good MPs that give people a good experience or a poor experience in all the major parties. There seems to be some correlation with safe seats. That MPs with very safe seats are less likely to give people a good experience, but there are some notable exceptions to that as well. And there seems to be some correlation perhaps with age as well, in terms of MPs who have joined Parliament more recently doing a better job of engaging with their voters digitally, but again, with notable exceptions. Where the interaction works well, we found that that can be a benefit for everyone. A third of 38 Degrees members say that their understanding of Parliament and how the parliamentary process works has improved thanks to being in contact with their MP, so understanding of the democratic process has improved. Another thing that I think is really important to emphasise is that our members told us that having a good experience doesn't mean their MP always agrees with them. There were lots of cases where members talked about an interaction with an MP where the MP disagreed but explained why, gave an indication that they were engaging with the other point of view and had thought about it, and that was considered positive. So out of all this qualitative data and those kind of headline stats, we've just tried to draw out a few top-line recommendations. The first is that our members support MPs being given the resources and training and technology they need to properly engage with their voters online. 76% of 38 Degrees members say that they're in favour of Parliament spending money on that. They see it as a good investment in democracy. The second recommendation would be to treat online engagement, as I think probably you should treat any form of engagement really, as a conversation, as an opportunity to learn and understand, as well as just an opportunity to explain your own point of view. I think where MPs respond promptly but still got low scores from our members, it was where there was a sense that they were just getting the kind of party line back. Building on that, MPs actually saying what they think and how they feel about an issue seems to be really important to our members. If 150 people contact an MP about the same issue, I think our members think it's perfectly reasonable that the MP replies saying more or less the same thing to all of them. You're not going to have 150 different opinions on the same subject. But what our members would like is for that common message to say what the MP thinks and for it to engage with the points that have been made, not for it to be simply a kind of policy document from head office that's being forwarded on. That doesn't feel like a meaningful transaction to people. The key things that our members highlighted as things that they felt very negatively about and made them feel negative about democracy were firstly where they contacted an MP as part of a campaign and were dismissed because they had contacted them as part of a campaign. That our members said loud and clear that they consider if they contact an MP as part of a campaign, it's still a one-on-one interaction that they're having. They are contacting them because they have chosen to as part of that campaign. And when an MP brushes that off and says, this is just a clone email, you clearly haven't thought about it properly, that feels very patronising and very hostile. Secondly, really negative views about those MPs that try to block communication. That sends an incredibly bad message. So the MPs that have got rid of their email address or attempted to use technical blocks to stop people mailing them, that's seen very negatively. And thirdly, I guess just a sense from our members that within a democracy, any healthy democracy has a plurality of voices, a plurality of means of getting in touch with decision makers, a plurality of places in which conversations take place. A healthy democracy is probably a slightly chaotic place in lots of ways, and that the internet is no different from that, and there is not going to be one channel or one approach that suits everyone, and that outsider organisations that exist outside of a formal political process but give people a way of contributing in are something that lots of the public see as a really important way of engaging, and something which MPs should see the internet as a positive feature of.
Okay, thank you.